Built Right is a contractor. Last week, they signed a $60,000 kitchen renovation. The agreement is in writing. Both sides signed it. The crew is scheduled to start on Monday. Under ASC 606, Built Right does not have a contract. A signed $60,000 agreement that does not count as a contract. How is that possible? That is exactly what this video is about. Hi, welcome back to Concierge CPA. I am Juliet. In our last video, we walked through an overview of ASC 606 and the 5-step revenue recognition model. Today, we're going deeper into step 1, identify the contract. Because before a company can recognize any revenue at all, it has to clear step 1. And step 1 is not just, is there a piece of paper? ASC 606 lays out very specific criteria, and all 5 have to be met before a contract exists for revenue recognition purposes. One quick but important point. ASC 606 does not require a contract to be in writing. A contract can be written, oral, or even implied by how a company normally does business. What the standard cares about is not the form, it is whether the arrangement meets those 5 criteria. So the real question is never just, is there a signed document? The real question is, do these 5 things hold true? Number 1, approval and commitment. Number 2, right to identifiable. Number 3, payment terms. Number 4, commercial substance. And number 5, the collection is probable. We are going to go through all 5, and we are going to use 2 jobs to do it. Job number 1, Built Right is renovating a kitchen for the Hartleys. $60,000. The Hartleys are a straightforward, financially solid couple. And job number 2, Built Right is also being asked to renovate a kitchen for the Prestons. Same contract, same kind of job, but the Prestons are a different story. Built Right worked with them once before, and on that job, the Prestons paid late and Built Right had to chase them for months. This time, the Prestons are financing the renovation, and the financing is not secured yet. Keep both of these in mind as we go through the 5 criteria. One of these jobs is going to clear all 5. The other is going to look completely fine until it doesn't. So let's go. Criteria number 1, the parties approve and are committed. ASC 606 says the first criterion is that the parties to the contract have approved the contract and are committed to performing their obligations. Now let's translate what the standard is really asking in plain English. Have both sides actually agreed to this? And do they intend to follow through? Not are they thinking about it? Have they committed? Here is when this one fails in practice. If one side is still deciding, still negotiating whether to go ahead at all, there is no real commitment yet. A proposal sitting in someone's inbox is not an approved contract. So let's apply this. The Hartleys reviewed the renovation agreement, they signed it, and they are committed to paying for the work. Built Right is committed to doing it. Both sides approved. Criterion 1 is met. The Prestons, same thing. They have approved the job, they want it done, and Built Right is committed. Criteria 1 is also met. Criteria number 2, each party's rights can be identified. The standard says the company must be able to identify each party's rights regarding the goods or services to be transferred. Now let's translate what the standard is really saying. In plain English, do we actually know what each side is getting? What is Built Right on the hook to deliver, and what does the customer have a right to receive? And here is when this one fails in practice. If the deal is just fix up the kitchen with no real detail, nobody can say what Built Right actually promised, that criteria will not be met. So let's apply this. The Hartleys agreement spells it out. Specific cabinets, specific countertops, a defined layout, Built Right supplying the materials. Everyone knows exactly what is being delivered. So the criteria is met. The Prestons agreement is just as detailed. The scope is clearly defined. Criteria 2 also met. So far, everything looks good in both jobs. Criteria number 3, the payment terms can be identified. The standard says the company must be able to identify the payment terms for the goods or services to be transferred. Now let's translate what the standard is saying. In plain English, do we know how much and when? Not roughly 60 grandish, the actual price and the actual payment schedule. And here is when this one fails in practice. We will settle up at the end, or somewhere around 60,000. There are not identifiable payment terms. If you cannot clearly pin down the amount and the timing, this criteria is not met. So let's apply this to our jobs. The Hartleys agreement states $60,000 with a defined deposit and scheduled progress payments tied to milestones. Clear, criteria is met. The Prestons agreement also lays out a price and a payment schedule. On paper, the payment terms are identifiable. The criteria is met. And notice something here. Criteria 3 is only asking whether we can identify the terms. It is not asking whether the customer will actually pay. That is a different criteria. So hold that thought. Criteria 4. The contract has commercial substance. ASC 606 says the contract must have commercial substance, meaning the risk, timing, or amount of the company's future cash flows is expected to change as a result of the contract. Now let's translate what the standard is really asking. In plain English, is this a real economic transaction? Does doing this deal actually change the company's financial position? This one is usually quick. It mostly exists to screen out artificial arrangements. For example, two companies swapping similar goods back and forth just to inflate their reported revenue with no real economic change. That would lack commercial substance. Now let's apply this to our jobs. The Hartleys. Build Right does $60,000 of work and gets paid $60,000. Real money, a real change in cash flow. Criteria 4 is met. The Preston, same, a genuine renovation for real payment. Criteria 4 is also met. And finally, criteria number 5, collection is probable. ASC 606 says it must be probable that the company will collect substantially all of the consideration it is entitled to in exchange for the goods or services that will be transferred. And the standards specific about how you judge this. You look at the customer's ability and intention to pay when the payment is due. Now let's translate what the standard is saying. In plain English, do we actually believe this customer can pay us? And will they pay us? And probable is a real bar under US GAAP. Probable means likely, not maybe, not we hope so. Likely. This is the criteria that separates a real contract from a hopeful one. Now let's apply this and watch what happens. The Hartleys are financially solid. Their financing is in place. There is no reason to think they will not pay. It is probable that Build Right collects. Criteria 5 is met. And that means the Hartleys job has now cleared all 5 criteria. Build Right has a contract under ASC 606. Step 1 is completely satisfied. Now the Prestons. Remember, criteria 1 through 4 were all met. The Prestons approved the job, the rights are clear, the payment terms are written down, the deal has commercial substance. All 4 have been met. But criteria 5 asks a different question. Is it probable that Build Right collects substantially all of it? Look at what Build Right already knows. The Prestons paid late on the last job, and Build Right has to chase them for months. Now, their financing for this renovation is still not secured. Those are major collectability concerns because when companies assess collectability, they are evaluating 2 things: the customer's ability to pay and their intention to pay. Based on that, Build Right cannot conclude the collection is probable. So criteria 5 is not met. And here is the part that surprises people. 1 failed criteria and the whole thing collapses. It does not matter that the other 4 were met. All 5 must be satisfied because under ASC 606, no revenue can be recognized from an arrangement until collectability is probable. If the company cannot reasonably expect to collect them from an accounting perspective, this is not yet a revenue arrangement the standard allows the company to recognize. So under ASC 606, Build Right does not have a contract with Prestons, even though there is a signed agreement. So what happens now? Does Build Right stop the project completely? Not necessarily. The company may still decide to move forward with the renovation. Businesses do this all the time. But at this stage, ASC 606 does not yet allow Build Right to recognize the revenue under the model because collectability is still not probable. And if the Prestons hand over a $10,000 deposit anyway, Build Right still does not recognize that as revenue. Instead, the cash sits on the balance sheet as a liability, essentially deferred revenue, because the company has received consideration from the customer, but has not yet met the criteria required to recognize the revenue under the standard. Now, this situation is not necessarily permanent. Built Right reassesses. If the Prestons later secure financing and collection becomes probable, then at that point the contract criteria may be met and revenue recognition under ASC 606 can begin going forward. But ASC 606 also provides another path. If Built Right ultimately finishes the project, has no remaining obligations to transfer goods or services, and the consideration received from the customer is non-refundable, then ASC 606 allows the company to recognize the revenue, even though the contract criteria were not originally met. So no contract under ASC 606 does not necessarily mean no deal forever. It means not yet. And before you go, let me give you the practical side of this. When you're evaluating whether a contract exists under ASC 606, do not try to analyze all 5 criteria at the same time. Run them one by one as simple yes or no questions. Did both parties approve and commit? Are the rights clear? Are the payment terms identifiable? And so on. And the moment you hit a no, you stop, because at that point there is no contract under ASC 606 yet. That is how this actually gets applied in practice. But here is the thing I really want you to take away from this video. 4 of these 5 criteria are usually straightforward most of the time. You can evaluate them just by reading the agreement. Collectibility is different. This is the real judgment area in step 1. It is not just about paperwork. It is about evaluating whether the economics of the arrangement are actually real. So if you're learning ASC 606, that is where to focus your attention, because collectibility is the issue that comes up again and again in real revenue recognition analysis. And it is important enough that we are going to give it its own deep dive later in this series. But next, we move naturally into step 2, identifying the performance obligations. And honestly, that is where ASC 606 starts becoming much more judgment heavy, because now we have to determine exactly what the company actually promised to transfer to the customer. That is where some of the biggest revenue recognition questions begin. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.